On behalf of the Chinese delegation, I would like to welcome the Prime Minister for being present at today's meeting. I would also like to thank you for your statement. I want to make 2 points. First, the Libyan conflict led to the massive return of people to their homeland and the proliferation of weapons, which has affected the economic and social development of its neighbors and the neighboring countries. This impact might persist for some time. Therefore, we believe that the Security Council should draw lessons from the handling of the Libyan issue. Just now, the Prime Minister of Libya stated that Libya is going to hold a regional conference on the proliferation of weapons. We appreciate this effort and we welcome this development. Secondly, recently the Human Rights Council set up the International Commission of Inquiry. In the report of the Commission, it stated explicitly that the airstrike of NATO of Libya indeed caused civilian casualties. Some of the target of airstrike are not military facilities. The International Commission of Inquiry also suggests that further investigations have to be conducted. This finding is also in line with the reports of some media coverage. China would like to express its severe concern about this. This has a bearing on the accurate implementation of the mandate of the Security Council resolutions. It has a bearing on the authority and the seriousness of the resolutions of the Security Council. And therefore, the Security Council has the necessity to understand the whole situation. China supports the efforts of the Security Council to remain seized of the situation and carry out further investigation of this case. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative. National has accused Libya's National Transitional Council of failing to stop human rights abuses. It says uncounted thousands of Muammar Gaddafi supporters are being held without charge and tortured by former rebels. Well, since September, it's reported at least 12 prisoners have been killed as a result of torture. The report comes as Libya prepares to mark the first anniversary of the start of its NATO-backed revolution. But despite the celebrations, the NTC is struggling to get the situation under control. Groups of former rebels are now vying for power. Efforts to disarm the civilian population have failed, and the country's economy is in ruins after the war. Well, Beirut-based political scientist Nala Hashmi predicts years of turmoil in Libya.
Gaddafi was only a puppet in the hands of the Western countries. He was buying his stance, he was buying everybody out. Sarkozy, Berlusconi, and all the other Western leaders. His time got expired, and this is why they got rid of him. Because he was paying enough, but not good enough. We all know about what's happening, the recession in Europe, and what's happening towards the oil and the gas. So what they want is to get control of everything in Libya. I see a very grim future in Libya. I see a civil war in Libya. I see it's never going to have a good, stable environment there. And this is exactly what the Western wants to happen, because they want to get control of all the oil, all the natural resources there.
On our website, RT.com, you can find out how the shockwaves of the Arab Spring are still being felt a year on. It's a case of deja vu in Bahrain, where protesters who took to the streets calling for democracy reforms were confronted with a harsh police crackdown.
For more on where the country is headed, I'm joined by Sukant Shandin, spokesman for the British Civilians for Peace in Libya. Thanks for your time. So we see that the first NTC official are leaving his post after the latest protests. Are we going to see others give up as well and quit on demand by the people? What do you think?
Absolutely, I think so. I think in his afterlife, Muammar Gaddafi is having the last laugh in relation to NATO and the NTC. I mean, this has been a revolution of sodomizers and lynchers of black. I mean, they've turned Libya into a warren of the hunting of black skins. They're selling off their oil and natural resources and sovereignty to NATO. And now the thieves, that is the rebels, they're all falling out with each other. They can't even be paid by their own masters in what they've done, which is actually perform regime change on behalf of the former colonialists of Libya. That's the Italians, the French, and the British and the Americans. Now, my sources on the ground tell me, and it's confirmed, that there is a Benghazi representative to the NTC called Mrs. Ibtisam, who has resigned, and she has said that others are to follow. And as you mentioned, the deputy head has resigned after violent protests against him. Now, if you don't want to believe what Gaddafi said about what was going to happen after the regime fell, and everything that I would say that he said has come to pass, then listen to Mr. Georgia or listen to Abdul Jalil. Mr. Georgia is saying Libya is descending into depravity and hatred. And Mr. Abdul Jalil, who's probably about to resign if he's not assassinated like the NTC military head, Abdel Fattah Yunus, has said Libya is in danger of descending into a bottomless pit. So really, this is the achievement of freedom and democracy by NATO. It's all become very clear.
So in the event that there are members of the NTC who do step down, who do you think will step in to replace them?
It's, you know, whoever can hack the job, you know.
Who do you think will be the best person?
The thing is, with the new electoral law, it bars anyone who has any real association or loyalty to the previous regime of Muammar Gaddafi. You know, the Gaddafi regime could control the whole of Libya, could find peace amongst all the tribes. The new regime cannot even control something in one town or one area. Now, the BBC is reporting from Gharyan about the secret prisons, about the torture torturing that's going on. The BBC is feigning surprise that this is the outcome of the NATO enterprise in Libya. Everyone knew this. Everyone with a little bit of political nous and pragmatic reality could see that this was coming to pass. But what about Imam Tantoush, who's still tortured, and there's YouTube videos of him being tortured? What about Khalid Kaim? What about Hala Misrata? What about Mr. Dorda, the representative of the United Nations? Everyone in the United Nations knows Mr. Dorda. He is today being tortured. He is being tortured, and many other former senior regime people. Where is the Red Cross? Where is the United Nations? Are they facilitators to a NATO project in Libya, or are they actually there to provide some semblance of humanitarian support? So in terms of who's going to step in, I mean, who's going to step in to do what? What can they actually manage in Libya? It's a complete farce, and the people of Syria and the people of Lebanon and the people of the global south have to see that what's happening in Libya is coming to them if they're not able to defend themselves and stop this rolling Western aggression against other countries.
Protesters say the National Transitional Council is failing to cover the basic needs of the people. Why do you think this is happening when there's so much oil wealth there?
This is happening because this is the business of the West, is to absolutely devastate and knock out any country that's an obstacle to their total domination in the world. You know, it's no coincidence.
But wouldn't it be in the West's advantage to rebuild the infrastructure there, to keep it going, so that in case their primary desire there is oil, to have a functioning country that can keep providing it?
A great Chinese revolutionary said that the West only picks up a heavy rock only to drop it back on its feet. You know, they've picked up the enormous rock which is Libya and is dropping constantly onto the feet of NATO, meaning that the alliances, the political alliances that they've made, they're in a catch-22. Because of the political alliances they've made, these allies of theirs in Libya are absolutely just steeped deep into intertribal conflict and inter-political fratricidal conflict. So there really is no way out, really, for any type of order in Libya. Perhaps, and this is the main strategy, that the West want to knock out Libya as a resistant nation in the global south and try to secure, in terms of security and Western mercenaries, etc., the oil wealth of Libya. But it remains to be seen whether the resistance in Libya can allow that to happen or not.
All right, we have to leave it there. Sukan Shandan, spokesman for the British Civilians for Peace in Libya. Thanks for your time. Mass graves containing around 900 bodies have been discovered by authorities in the Libyan capital. They're believed to be victims of clashes between former rebels and Gaddafi loyalists in Tripoli. The new government's fighters are now pushing toward the center of Sirte, the colonel's hometown, and one of his final strongholds. The conflict has taken more than 30,000 lives since it started in February. Fallen leader Muammar Gaddafi has apparently released a new audio message calling for people to rise and resist the nation's interim leaders. The colonel's whereabouts have been unknown since the capital was taken over by the opposition in August. The transmission comes as fighting between remaining loyalists and former rebels, aided by NATO airstrikes, intensifies in Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. The Libyan civil war was joined by NATO in March with an objective to protect civilians under a UN resolution, but as the president of the Arab Lawyers Association tells RT, the high death toll proves that NATO did not have peaceful intentions from the start.
We have to remember that the resolution of the UN was, in fact, only confined to no-fly zones, to imposing no-fly zones. It was there to protect civilians. At the end of the day, we end up with NATO actually going to war against the people of Libya. Obviously, the dictatorship which prevailed there is no reason to declare war on the people of Libya by NATO. I think the USA, Britain, France, and the Western powers are hiding now behind NATO so that no one can point a finger at. But the figures of the casualties caused by NATO bombing is really mounting. 2 weeks ago in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, the commission which was asked to investigate the situation in Libya came with the report saying that they have discussed with NATO, but NATO has confirmed to them, quote, that they have not had any targeting against the civilians. I think NATO is continuing its war against the Libyan people, albeit that they got rid of the dictatorship, but we seem to be heading to the same exercise they have done in Iraq, and I think Russia was right in taking the position vis-à-vis Syria, because we don't want a repeat performance whereby the UN took the position in Iraq and then took the position in Libya. The UN is not there to change regimes. It may protect humanitarian purposes, it might protect civilians, it might stop wars, but it is definitely not to change regimes.
Showing how some other stories making headlines across the...
Thousands of civilians are fleeing the city of Sirte in Libya en masse as a fighting between Gaddafi loyalists and the former rebel forces reaches an apex. Reports saying most of the refugees are heading for the comparative safety of the desert, leaving behind their belongings and livelihoods. Well, they're critically short of water, food and medicine, and there's now a very real threat of a new humanitarian disaster emerging. Aid workers are rushing to the area, but continued fighting is preventing access. Let's get more on the situation now and cross live to Debe Sacher, a spokeswoman for the International Committee of the Red Cross, who's on her way to the area. She joins me live now by the phone. Ms. Sacher, can you tell us, please, more about what's going on there? Is the situation really as dire as reports seem to suggest?
Well, I mean, the ISRC team has been present in the area since almost a week now. We are currently in the east of Sirte. The families, hundreds of families, as you mentioned, are leaving Sirte and they're being displaced to areas, for instance, the desert that is between Sirte and the village of Harawa, or even going to Harawa or any other places where they could reach and, be in safe places. These people who already left, they are living in difficult conditions, especially those among them who are in the desert. The information we get from the people getting out of Sirte is mentioning that inside Sirte, the food supply is getting very low. There is no water, no electricity, and they have very difficult access to health care. So, this is, in brief, what
is the food supply is
now to Harawa as well.
You say the situation's critical, the food supply is running low, people there are getting desperate. What's being done to reach these people and to try and supply them with the aid that they need? Is enough being done?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you well. Could you kindly repeat?
You say that the situation there is critical, that crucial supplies are running low. What's being done to try and reach the people who are now displaced and in desperate need of help? Is enough being done?
Yes, for the ICRC, we have been trying since the past weeks to enter the city of Sirte. We are prepared, we have all the humanitarian assistance needed, but so far we couldn't get the necessary security guarantees to be able to get. We have attempted to get to Sirte by boat, but our attempt did not success. And then we are still intensifying our contacts with the parties to the conflict to be able to get into Sirte. Now, for the people who left Sirte already towards the east and towards the west, the ICRC is following up closely on the situation and is providing assistance to these people, mainly when it comes to delivering hygiene kits, to give them food parcels, distribute water, to help them cope with the difficult conditions in which they are living. So for the IDPs who are leaving Sirte, we are providing the necessary assistance. However, inside Sirte, for the moment, we still didn't manage to get access.
All right, Dibe Sacher, a spokeswoman for the International Committee of the Red Cross. Many thanks for speaking to us here on RT on the ongoing situation in Sirte. Do stay with RT to keep across developments on that.